Welcome, everyone. My name is Erin, and we always like to open our gatherings in a good way. I know that many of you are getting together and really excited for the spring to be coming. For the Lakota people, we are very anxiously waiting for the Thunder Beings to return. And so I know a lot of you are probably getting ready for your spring gatherings and really looking forward to the green grass coming back and the flowers like we are. And so I have one of my daughters here. Sophie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sophie with Chakpi Tinok Frijo.
And she's going to help me open in a good way. So this is called In the Circle Way, Teachings of the Spirit. Know that you are sacred.
Know that you are honored.
Know that you are prayed for.
Know that others gave offerings in your behalf.
Know that you are not alone.
Know that you were known before you came to this place.
Know that you have choices.
Know that you have a name.
Know that many know your name.
Know that when you reach, you are also reaching towards others.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Erin and Sophie. That was beautiful. Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Metoxen. I'm a Training and Technical Assistance Manager with the Tribal Youth Resource Center. Just want to take this time to do a more formal introduction of our guests who we're very happy to have on to provide some information about increasing culture within a juvenile healing and wellness court setting. So just to provide a little background information on Erin and Dave, who will be handling the topic today. Erin Thinelk is an enrolled member of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. She earned a Bachelor's of Arts in English with a certificate in Native American Studies and a Master's of Social Work, both from the University of Iowa. Erin holds a passionate commitment to healing, health, and social justice for Indigenous children, youth, and family. She lives with her beautiful children in her Dakota homelands of Minnesota, and her professional experience includes culturally competent behavioral health practice, community-based participatory research and evaluation, mental health prevention and post-vention training and programmatic development, restorative justice, and university teaching and educational outreach with Native communities across the United States. Thank you again, Erin, for being here today and facilitating our conversation. Dave McArthur serves the White Earth Nation as a program manager overseeing Juvenile Health and Wellness Court program, Circle Back Outpatient Substance Use Disorder Treatment Program, Oshki Monadoo Inpatient Adolescent SUD Treatment Program, Dually Involved Youth Program, and White Earth Prevention Program. He's worked with Juvenile Healing and Wellness Courts for the past 12 years, building the program from the ground up, and has been involved in its continued development along with other youth and family services initiatives at the White Earth Nation. Before working for White Earth, he served as a law enforcement officer and corrections officer, emergency dispatcher, community awareness officer, and the chief of police for the Callaway Ogama Police Department, from which he is retired. Thank you, Dave, for your presence here today. We can go to the next slide. And before we get into the bulk of the conversation, just wanted to provide some foundational info. We know a lot of our participants here today are from different backgrounds, have different experiences in terms of juvenile and wellness courts, may be interested to know more about them or have had on the ground experience working within a juvenile and wellness court setting. So just kind of wanted to get the foundation laid before we get into the bulk of our conversation. So healing and wellness courts basically are in place to enhance the capacity of tribal custom, justice, youth intervention, all these different dynamics that work together in an environment that's a safe environment for youth who are justice involved or sometimes referred to the program, and really to provide services that are comprehensive, developmentally appropriate, community-based, and culturally appropriate, bringing together resources and individuals from the youth's community that can help guide them in a way that's positive, and in a way that helps them heal, and in a way that gets them on the right path if there was any divergence previously. We can move to the next slide, please. And then in terms of who's involved, typically in juvenile health and wellness court team, we deal with close to 30 grantees across Indian country. So, these individuals are going to be different based on community resources, based on community needs, and based on staff availability. So typically we do see a judge or court leader who's involved in the juvenile healing and wellness court, a coordinator, a case manager, somebody who kind of helps facilitate the team, legal counsel, whether that be prosecutor, defense counsel, or even in-house counsel sometimes when it comes to policies and procedures, legal code, things of that nature. Supervision, or otherwise known as probation services, treatment representatives, and social services, in terms of juvenile considerations, family and social services, education, elders, culture, community members. So as you see, there's a variety of individuals with different experiences involved in these programs. So we're excited to hear more from Erin and Dave about some of the work that's been done previously, some of the work we're looking forward to, and the ways that we can help you and your communities increase the presence of culture within your respective juvenile healing and wellness courts. And with that, I'll hand the mic to Erin and Dave. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide. So I think before we move further on into our discussion here today, I think getting an idea about the frameworks and our approaches, and the Western traditional framework or court system, I think like the Western approach very much is based on a medical model, or really looking at disease or illness, or what is wrong with the individual, looking at the problem, what's the problem, what is the cause, what is, not necessarily looking at how we do as an Indigenous framework of this is a relative, this is someone that is valuable to our family, to our community, to the nation as whole. This is someone that we possibly know, or that someone in our family knows, that can be well again. That in the Indigenous framework, we are really looking at health and healing, looking at the strengths of what this person has had in the past, that has currently, and that can provide back to the community again. Really looking at, the roots of their strengths, as well as the roots of their trauma, looking at what protective factors they have in their family and in the community that can protect them and get them back into the community to be a positive impact again. So I think as we're moving through these different discussion points, these frameworks are really important to think about when we're moving through and looking at these different ways of supporting the youth as they're moving through the court systems. We can go on to the, actually, Dave, I do have on the slide here, with the Western approach, I do have a hard time with the word juvenile. And I know that in my work with different communities, there has been several tribal communities that have not used the word juvenile any longer. And I think in your community, actually, they have maybe moved away from that word. That is something that I believe you guys have done?
Yes. One thing that we did is that we brought a spiritual person in and talked with him a little bit, and he sat and came up with a name for our program. So we have a culturally specific name for our program that we use, and we've taken the words juvenile out, we've taken the words court out, we've taken out those types of things. So try to make it more of a friendly atmosphere when the clients come in.
It's a great example. Has anybody, I'm just curious, has anybody else that's on the call done something similar in their courts? Or even if somebody's on the line that's in this webinar, even if you're not in a juvenile healing to wellness court, if you're in a tribal youth program, or any other type of programming. I'm just interested if you've used any other strength-based language and made any changes like that in your program. Feel free to write something in the chat. But that's just one example, changing the word juvenile, not using the word delinquency, maybe using other strength-based language, not only in like your outreach and brochures, but then also, within the proceedings, within any type of goal-based setting, with any type of contracts, any type of paperwork that anybody sees. Not sure if anybody's writing anything. We can go ahead and go on to the next slide. So as we're moving through, looking at different frameworks to approach that could be helpful within juvenile healing wellness courts, one of the ones that we wanted to bring forward was the SAMHSA 8 Dimensions of Wellness. So SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Our colleagues over there brought forth this framework that really looks at 8 dimensions: the emotional, financial, social, spiritual, occupational, physical, intellectual, and environmental. And go ahead and go on the next slide. So you can see on the screen, here are a couple of examples in each domain that we've seen juvenile healing wellness courts addressing. For the physical, they've offered screening and assessment. If something pops up with maybe substance use within a screening, they've referred to a medical provider or a therapist for further assessment. For emotional, if there is a positive screening and assessment, they could go into therapy or into treatment. They could also go for further spiritual or cultural help. Intellectual, perhaps there are other activities that could help with the areas that they need addressing. Social, there's maybe pro-social activities on Friday nights that could help address some areas if they're perhaps, choosing activities that aren't in their best interest on a Friday night. So you can see these are a couple of examples that we've seen in juvenile healing to wellness courts that we've seen following the 8 dimensions of wellness here, the 4. Dave, do you have any examples that you've
Some of the things that we did with, especially with our screenings and assessments and different things, is that we put a cultural twist to everything. Before, we were always using whatever we could find on the internet or whatever we could come up with for a screening tool or assessment tools and stuff like that. And we saw that the kids weren't really reacting well to them. They didn't have a really good understanding or anything. So then we started to put our culture into it. We started changing up some of the assessments, putting some wording in that, was more culturally specific than it was just whatever words. I guess I can't think of the right term to say, but it was more culturally specific. Same way with like our mental health and behavioral health side of things. And our SUD, we started seeing that the kids weren't responding to the curriculums that we were using. So we sat back and we developed our own culturally specific to White Earth books, where our workers come together, sat down, and they brought out all of the different teachings, different things in, and they implemented it into our SUD programming, and we started our own curriculum. One other thing we did with our behavioral health and mental health portion of it is that a lot of our kids were getting picked up, and they were talking about different things that they were going on in their life, like seeing things, hearing things, talking about dreams and different things. And our mental health providers would visit with them, and they would assume right away that they needed to go off on a 72-hour hold or something like that. So we implemented a portion of our behavior, our mental health, to where they got screened for that 72-hour hold, but then they still had to meet with a cultural person, visit about what was going on, and then figure out if that was really something they needed to go on a 72-hour hold, or if it was something that we could work with culturally or spiritually. So a lot of these things that we see on here, and you know, we think right away that we got to go to the, how can I put it, like the school mindset of what we're taught in schools and how we're supposed to do things. And sometimes, well, 99% of the time, we just kind of need to set back and bring our culture back into what we're doing, and really rely on that for guidance. So that's what we've tried to do with some of these different things that you have listed here.
And going back to, you know, incorporating the culture, and using, you know, our language as much as possible. Your Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court, actually has, your Indigenous language. I think
Yes.
it's something leading to the light.
Yeah, leading light at dawn.
Oh, leading
Uh,
light.
Yeah, and I could try to say it, but I have to have it in front of me to read it. So, or to get my, I'm not, how can I put it? I'm not very versed in our language. So, but yeah, that's it. It has a cultural name. All of our programs do. Everything underneath our adolescent programs, or everything underneath our First Under Being House, they all have been named by our spiritual people. So,
So the program referred to, I mean, is called Leading Light at Dawn. That sounds in itself much more, I would want to be a part of that as a youth rather than Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. You know, I mean that, and I'm sure the story of why it's called that, and how it relates to the culture and is shared with them.
that's like our duly involved youth. I think that when the translation is second breath of water, or so second breath from water. So everything kind of has like a meaning of like restarting and educating, right? And that's some of the stuff I think our youth is really missing right now. I think it's like that everywhere. You know, a lot of our kids are being raised by grandkids or by grandparents, I should say. And sometimes they're just not getting the teachings and the different things that they need, right? From like a guardian. They're kind of left on their own. They're kind of out there trying to figure things out. A lot of our kids are raising their siblings in different things, and it's kind of like just trying to reset, right? Just reset that whole thought process of coming back and restoring the teachings that they need. You know, how to grow up, how to learn from mistakes, how to understand that when you do make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, and different things like that, And I think grounding them in culture and having your elders that are teaching them and telling them, hey, it's okay. This has happened before, and you don't have to go off and do this. There's other avenues for you. It's really helped our programming. And that's where most of our names for our programs come from, is this kind of like a reset, like resetting and starting to teach, That makes sense.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. I think it's just the next 4 dimensions of wellness, and some examples. Spiritual plan development, occupational, offering some job skills or job prep, financial literacy, environmental, any type of environmental connection, And then, I don't know, do you have any examples that you guys are doing within your program up there for these 4 dimensions of wellness?
With our new court that we're bringing up, our trauma informed court, it kind of touches on all this. Our trauma informed, like when they're going through, like when they start the program, they're going to start their own birch bark scroll from the time that their trauma started, and they're going to keep that all the way through the program. And at the end, they can decide if they want to burn it at ceremony in a fire, or they can keep it and just keep moving on with the rest of their life on this scroll. But a lot of the things that we're doing there, instead of us giving elaborate gifts and everything like that, it'll be them giving back to the people that are helping them, right? With different ceremonies, different deals where they talk about what they learned through that first part of programming and so on. The other thing at the end of that program, they're able to come back, and through our Minnesota SEP program, we can hire them to come back through the summer and work so many hours during the summer and help teach the new kids coming through that program, right? So they can come in, instead of us being the teachers, they can learn from their peers. So they learn that there's others out there that went through what they've gone through, and they also have that peer support type thing built into the program. And then we also work with them on the financial side of things when they do start making that little bit of money during the summer. People talk with them and visit with them about how to manage their money, and not to just run out and buy the coolest shoes that they can find because they got a check, and different things like that. On the spiritual side of things, everything we do, we try to implement some sort of a spiritual activity and a cultural activity. Like when you come through our FCD programming on our outpatient, you have to learn 125 words of our language before you can graduate that program. So the kids just take off. They love it. And when the instructor ain't there, the kids sit down and do the instructing. It's kind of cool to see. And the other thing we do is we include everybody, our referents, which would be the state court systems, county court systems, all these people, schools, whoever does any type of referring into our program, we invite them to come in and be a part of our gatherings, our celebrations, our sweat lodges, different things that we do with the kids. So, and our staff is even encouraged to participate. And then once they start to participate and spend time doing things like that, they start forming a bond, and really strengthens your programming by doing that.
Thank you, Dave. The next slide. Okay, so healing to wellness courts, really came our tribal adaptations of the drug courts from the 1980s. So, really looking at the 10 key components that came as adaptations of the drug courts. And it's really looking at honoring the tribes as nations, and our youth that are going through, and the fact that they have sovereignty as individuals, that they have dual citizenship, for those that are not a part of tribal nations, and not understanding that they have dual citizenship of being a tribal citizen and be a citizen of the United States. Again, really honoring culture as prevention. Culture can be as an intervention, and culture definitely can be recovery and as healing. And again, culture is not only just indigenous culture, language, it's also the culture of what the community is, where it's at and located, the geographic culture, all of that, and honoring that. So really looking at, the opportunity to open up and really understand like what's going on in the community, and integrating that into every part of the youth plan. We can go ahead and go on to the next slide. So this is the medicine wheel. I think that this framework is really, something that a lot of Indigenous communities are familiar with. It's really looking at balancing emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental. The 8 dimensions of wellness from SAMHSA touched briefly on this, but this is going back again to really looking at bringing back our relative and putting them into the center. Again, this isn't about somebody that is, that they need to be thrown out, cast away, they did something bad. This is, somebody that we know probably. I think Indian country is very small. It's somebody that we know, somebody in our family knows, and we want to bring them back into the circle. We want to sit them down. We want to understand what's happening. Even I think the word rehabilitation, I don't know necessarily if that really is congruent with an Indigenous framework. Why is that? Because what are they being rehabilitated from? I think it's more about what opportunities did they not have? What access did they not have? It's understanding what is the root of the trauma, like the slide that showed previously from before, really looking at that, really understanding what opportunities, what access do they need to be able to heal and be able to come back into the circle. And so one of the judges that we were able to do a presentation with at the San Diego conference, I really liked how he incorporated the medicine wheel within his court. And even with the youth, he would ask them the next time they came back if they would be able to work on introducing themselves in their Indigenous language, or be able to, say a couple words in their Indigenous language. And he would do that, if they were able to have access to someone in their family or someone within the program or the community that was able to sit and mentor them to be able to do that. He wouldn't just pull it out of the air. But, having that access to their culture, language is really, really important. So this is definitely a framework that I think can be applicable to a lot of Indigenous cultures across the board. Dave, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, some of the things that we really like the medicine wheel stuff, but we also bring in like the grandfather teachings and really work with our kids to work on their humility, their bravery, honesty, wisdom, truth, and respect. That's some of the things that I've kind of seen over the years that's kind of disappeared from our youth a little bit. Just as an example, we had an older gentleman that worked with us. He just currently passed away, but he, anytime anybody in our office would do something, if it was an older gentleman, he considered me an elder. I couldn't pick nothing up or carry anything through the building. And a lot of our youth were like, what's wrong with him? Why can't he carry it? And then he sat and explained to him. He was like, well, that's my role. That's my job. I'm supposed to help him. He's my elder. And a lot of times I've seen like some of those things we just kind of got away from. So we really focus on that. So.
I think a really good application of the medicine wheel is for conflict resolution and using the that approach for healing to wellness court. And that can be used for the emotional, physical, spiritual, mental. So for example, emotional for conflict resolution, if there has been a conflict, you can say, you can teach the youth to work with someone and say, when you did, XYZ, I felt this way. When you did XYZ, physically, it made me feel something in my stomach, there's a lot of different ways that you can use the medicine wheel framework for conflict resolution in addition, as well as like goal setting. So it's just a really good framework. I'm just really interested to hear from anybody in our audience if they have any best practices or successes with either the 8 dimensions of wellness. And we can go back up to those slides, or even with the medicine wheel, those teachings that they've used in their juvenile healing to wellness court, or any of their tribal youth programs that they've incorporated that have worked. So if you want to write that in the chat. And then Jacob, are you gonna?
Yeah, Erin, looks like we've got a question from Carolyn. How can the medicine wheel be better integrated into SAMHSA's 8 dimensions of wellness? Great question.
Yeah, so I think let's see. So I think the spiritual, emotional, physical, that is in SAMHSA's 8 dimensions of wellness. I think Dave gave some pretty good examples of how they are incorporating those components into their juvenile healing to wellness court. In other different presentations, there's a tool that I really like to use, which is called the personal balance tool. And that is a tool that's based on the medicine wheel approach. And it originally was created by my colleague, Alan Robideau and Shannon Crossbear. And then it was adapted by the Fresno Youth Council into a youth balance tool. And I've presented that on a couple of different presentations, and really encourage juvenile healing wellness courts to use it with youth in their programs, because it's a great goal setting tool that you can use with your youth throughout the program. And it helps them to set goals in the 4 different areas: emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental. You can do it at the beginning. You can check in with them, midpoint, readjust as needed, and then, see at the end of when they graduate how it helped them to reach their goals. So again, I don't know, that's a tool that I really would suggest looking at and using. We can send that out as well again.
Erin, looks like we've got another comment from Roxanne saying she uses CIC. I'm not sure if Roxanne, you want to share with the broader group about your usage of that particular program, or if Erin, you're familiar with CIC.
No, I'm not. Are you, Dave? I'm not sure what CIC is.
No. I think some of the stuff like Erin was mentioning earlier about integrating like into these dimensions of wellness for SAMHSA is pretty much the same as what she was talking about here with balancing emotional, physical, spiritual, mental. They're pretty much the same thing. I think it's just kind of like thinking out of the box and what you can do as an individual to meet the needs of your community. Like in White Earth, some of the things that we've done is like for the wellness portion of it, spiritual, physical, and mental, is smudging. Before we do anything, or before we break into groups and stuff like that, we smudge. We do different things like that. We hand out sage, sweetgrass, cedar, to all the medicines to our clients, and give them that opportunity to be able to take that home and use it at home and not just at our facility. Same way with physical, a lot of the different games and different things that we do culturally we teach and promote that they go home and they do different things like that. So I think it's just kind of like thinking out of the box, thinking about the things that you can do with your culture, with your spirituality, seeing what's acceptable in your community, connecting with your community and using those as a resource is kind of the way I see it. So
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Carolyn, for highlighting that, because if you look at the language and the 8 dimensions in the medicine wheel, there is overlap in terms of emotional, physical, and spiritual. The word mental, I guess could connect to the social aspect of the 8 dimensions. So Dave, I know you've kind of touched on, what different activities that you've provided for the youth, maybe on a Friday or Saturday night, when youth tend to maybe take more risks. Can you explain to our participants or share any particular success stories in terms of that social aspect of your programming available to the community?
Well, some of the different things that we've done, we've done a lot of cultural events, a lot of language tables, different things that we offer throughout the year for community members. But we also realize that a lot of our kids enjoy doing things that aren't cultural. So we started doing different like dances for them. We did a Halloween dance this year that had 200 plus participants, and that was moms and dads and daughters and sons and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles. It was really cool to see. Like I said before, working in these programs, we see a lot of negativity, and sometimes we get hardened with it, and we start our mindset starts changing a little bit to where we feel like we're not making a difference. But that day actually brought a smile to my face that day. I had kids that were in my program that had their kids there, and they were sober, and they were doing a fun activity with those kids. The other thing that we did, we started during COVID, was like a Halloween scare through drive-through. We started out the first year, I think we had like 500 participants come through. I think last year we had close to 3,000 people come through. And it was just something fun where kids can be kids, and the parents can, get a little bit of time just to relax and let their kids run around and not have to worry about where they are and what's going on, because it's a good, controlled, sober environment. Like I said, just think out of the box for the things that you can do. We've done youth celebrations at all the different seasons. We come in and we have like just a celebration. We got kids dancing, having a feast. We've done a lot of different things that we've tried to promote health and spirituality and the physical part and the mental health part, and a lot of it's just doing things probably that we got to do when we were kids, right? We got to go to those types of social gatherings. Our schools had proms, or they had stuff like that we could go to, and it's just expanding on that. I remember when I was a kid going to a community dance just about every Saturday night. They had a band in town and they had something going on. So just think out of the box and connect with your community, find out what they need, and everything will go good for you.
Looks like Roxanne has her hand up. Roxanne, if you'd like to share.
Yeah, I'm trying to share. It's on my phone. I'm not the most technological person, but with the tribal people up in Northern California, their Iknish is the root that they use. And so in the juvenile halls, when I would come and visit there, I'm a probation officer. And when I'd come in there, I'd always bring some Iknish for them so they could remember who they were, remember where they come from. And it always changed the atmosphere when I would bring that, because we would talk about the earth, that it is still there, even under the cement, the earth is still there. And then also whenever I do conflict resolution, I do the circle and so that everybody's at the same eye level, so it's all equal when we have to discuss hard topics and stuff. But the most important thing, I think, is just being the example and doing the work, showing up. Like if a kid needs to take a shower before they're going to go someplace, providing those resources for them to get cleaned up so they can feel good about themselves, feel good in their skin. Yeah, there's just so many things. I work with all different nationalities, but I'm tribal, so there is that when I show up, a sense of just a more sense of safeness, I guess, because there's some things culturally I understand that may come up.
Thanks, Roxanne. All right, does anybody else have any examples they want to share of activities or programming that they're doing within their Healing to Wellness courts with any of the 8 dimensions of SAMHSA or the medicine wheel teachings? You can put it in the chat if you want to. If you feel more comfortable, you can also unmute and speak. I think with another thing to think about with the medicine wheel teachings, with regards to the key components is, with the healing and involving the community and the family, thinking about with traditional courts and the fact that there's been such an evolution of moving from drug courts and how Indigenous people have really worked very hard to bring in the family and the community to address substance use issues, but more than that, really to be able to focus on the root causes of the dynamics of what brought the individual there, and encompassing all these healing aspects, and giving them being able to meet them where they're at. And the other thing that I really love about Juvenile Healing to Wellness is not only is it cultural based, Indigenous culture or what for the community, but also it's developmental. So it's really supposed to look at where the youth is at, whether they're, a young juvenile or young youth, or, older, and really meet them where they're at in regards to their emotional development, their physical development, mental development, and, even spiritual development. So that's something else that really needs to be encouraged about, when you're working with supporting these youth. Dave, do you have any examples of, anything that you've done with developmental, looking at developmental and meeting the youth at where they are with respect to that in the court?
I think everything that we have tried to develop here is been kind of youth driven, and how can I put it? Learn from from the others who have gone through the issues and they've had problems, and they ended up not really ever getting a chance to heal. I'll just give a quick little example. I just had a current worker that worked for me pass away, and when he was young, he was in a lot of trouble. I was actually the first person that ever arrested him when he was like 13 years old, and he was working for us in the last couple of years, and every morning he'd come to work and we'd sit down and we'd talk about kind of what we're talking about today, right? We'd talk about bringing our culture back, getting the kids involved in these positive activities, talking about balance, talking about emotions, and how it's okay to be mad, and how it's okay to be upset with your peers or your parents or your grandmas or your grandpas. We talked about this stuff just about every morning when he'd come to work. And he always would tell me, I think about almost every time we'd finish a conversation, he'd say, he'd always say, he'd go, "Dang, Dave, I wish I would have had this stuff when I was young. If I would have had this stuff when I was young," he goes, "my life would be totally different right now." He goes, "When I grew up," he goes, "we didn't have this. We didn't have these people in the community that tried to promote positivity by using our culture. It was always like deemed a bad thing, and he never got a chance to learn it." And he always said, I wish I would have learned that." The other day he passed away. So this is, I told these guys I was probably going to have a hard time with this today, because everything that we talk about, everything we've talked about during this, is what he said that he wished he would have had when he was young to help him make a change. So I just encourage everyone out there that when you're thinking about things and you're doing things, think out of that box. Make sure that you're grounded. Make sure that you're ready. Your emotions, you're emotionally balanced. Everything is balanced. And the decisions that you're making aren't just emotional decisions, right? That it's coming from that balanced area that you should be at, and involving people, involving your community, involving the kids, involving some of these older guys that never had that chance like some of these young ones are getting, and just try to move forward, try to implement everything the best that you can. And you're going to have some that listen and some that don't. You have your successes and you're going to have your failures, but think out of the box. Get back to what we're talking about, that medicine wheel, the grandfather teachings and language. Reroute these kids back down into the strengths that we've had for hundreds of years. So that's just kind of my thought on things. I hope that this encourages people. I hope this really gets you to get out there and really think about what you can do culturally and the different things that you can do in your community. Why do we take and look at the way the Western people are doing substance abuse and the way the Western people are doing mental health? Why do we sit and put ourselves underneath that, right? They always like our programming. They come to us and they say, well, you got to do it this way. This is the way that we were taught in colleges and everything. And our spiritual people come and say, well, no, we've gone through a lot of trauma and a lot of different stuff in our lifetime, and our culture and our spirituality has brought it through it, right? So you should be supporting us, not us supporting you. You should be a resource to our culture. And that's the way that I believe it should be. So that's my thought for the day on that. So I hope I didn't steer off too wrong or anything, but these things that we talk about are very important, and the empowerment of ourselves to be ourselves. When we're grounded and we're not scared to go out there and be ourselves and be what we're supposed to be, we'll do great things. So.
What I love too about, our approach as Indigenous people, as you say, is, with the Western models, I feel like so many things are, and I'm not saying we shouldn't use the Western model. There's so many great, modalities within it too. The combination can be absolutely amazing. But what I really love about our Indigenous frameworks are the fact that we don't compartmentalize. So, like, for example, if you are going to teach the kids a NEPI or sweat lodge, just getting them ready to go outside to, get the rocks, to get the wood, teaching them, what rocks you need, or to go cut the wood, and just being on the land and getting that fresh air in, and, the mindfulness of walking on the land, and with their peers. And it's just all those things of, mindfulness, those mindfulness skills, that peer connection, sitting down and eating together, and then going in, and all these skills that, if you go into a classroom in the Western way, it's like, today we're going to learn mindfulness. We're going to sit down, and this is mindfulness. And, and today you're going to, learn about peer building skills. And it's very, very compartmentalized. But the way that we teach, as Indigenous people, it's all together, and you're learning it, in real life. And it's not necessarily like up on a board and just singled out. And that's what I love about our Indigenous ways. And that's what I love when we are bringing back our culture and our language, because it's just so natural to us, and it just feels really good. And I know that our youth are just really love our ways, and it's our number one protective factor is that cultural connectedness. So I love when we see our programs bringing back our culture and our language and integrating that. I think we had one hand raised, didn't we?
Yes, Erin. Thank you, Erin and Dave. We've got Lisa Decora with her hand raised. Lisa, I'm not sure if you have, oh, there she is. The floor is yours, Lisa.
Okay, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Lisa Decora, and I work with Winnebago Tribal Court. And I've been listening to everything, has been so helpful. Thank you guys so much for putting this on. I do appreciate that. But I also wanted to introduce, my husband has been listening as well. My husband's name is Randy Decora, and he also works for the Winnebago Tribal Court as the truancy officer. So here he is.
Hello.
Hi, Randy.
Yes, I just wanted to share with you, I've been in my job 14 plus years, working for the tribal court, writing many tickets and working with a lot of different principals at the school. And one of the biggest things that the courts struggle with is, the schools, because that's where our kids kind of get in trouble first, because sometimes the schools don't know how to deal with them other than expel them, or hey, call the truancy officer, they're not coming to school, or maybe there's a bullying issue. And so what I've learned is that when kids are maybe doing some alcohol and drugs, we do have some programs called like AOD, where they can learn about, what this stuff can do to you. But it was hard finding classes that dealt with assault. It's hard finding juvenile classes that somebody could to do with assault. And so that's why I think with any of these people that that want to be on Samsung and our SAMHSA, maybe we got to have more trainings to train them, because it takes a long time to learn this stuff. And these people that just come on trying to get a job, and maybe you guys can have a series of classes for them so they can get real confident in what they do, because we're all at different levels of culture. Some of us really got it good, some of us didn't get it real good, and it's not any of our faults. It's just that some of us happen to be around some good people, and some of us didn't happen to be around a lot of good people. So it's a constant learning process, and especially when it comes to school-age children, when they're teenagers, we really got to help them a lot because that emotional side. And I really like what Dave said about we have a lot of our elders, raising our children, our teenagers, and it's hard for them. They don't have that kind of energy, and especially when it comes to discipline. Discipline's not a thing that feels real good for anybody. And we know how to put that love in there, learn how to use an eagle feather, like you said, the good medicines. Rita can help you. Our elders left a lot of good things for us, but not everybody knows how to use them. So we'd have to have some more training sessions on how to use them, especially like we were saying, a lot of our other younger people didn't have these elders to share them with, but they could learn very easily because I think Erin said it, that those medicines all over are all around us. We just have to be able to get the people that are in charge of these programs to really help teach that. Because anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Wish I could have talked earlier, but you guys did good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Randy. We'll be in touch. I will be in touch. Thank you.
I think we can go to the next slide. Unfortunately, we're on the hour, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we're going to close our discussion. I just want to take this time to say you won't go to Dave and Erin for taking your time out of the day today to speak and share your knowledge and experience. It was a really wonderful discussion and presentation. So just want to reiterate our gratitude for you being involved in this conversation today. And I think we're going to